everyone. Welcome to the I Will Not Be Ignored podcast. So happy to be joined today by my two co hosts. So, about 5 years ago, I was just really unhappy with my life, my family, my career, and I took a journey inward trying to figure out what was holding me back. And as I went through this journey, what I found out was that so much of other people's opinions and what everyone else was surrounding me in my circle were really dictating my decisions. And I really felt that I needed to take the time and really understand myself. And that's how the I will not be ignored concept. And that was the journey I started to take of listening to my inner voice and making decisions for myself and not letting outside influences dictate and determine how I think and how I feel. So really excited to get these group of women together, my co-hosts, and really discuss some of the things that I struggled with in my day-to-day life, with my family, my friends, my workplace, and really excited for today's episode.
Me too. Thank you for a very awesome intro, Tova. My name's Cleo, and I'm also joined by Jenny. Jenny, few words.
Yes, great to be here. As Tova said, we are all human. We all experience the same things. But what really bewildered us, the three of us, is the fact that there is that common human experience, but there are certain circumstances and situations that people just simply do not like to talk about for whatever reason. So we've created this platform to voice our concerns, acknowledge and empathize, and to problem solve as well in terms of this wild adventure called life.
Yeah, definitely want to hear weighing in for some of the things that I deal with on a daily basis. And really excited for today's episode where we're going to be discussing divorcing a friend. I know we've all had situations where we had relationships and they were great or they started off great or just they took time to develop. And then, somewhere in the middle, things got a little complicated, so to speak. And, we all have had moments of that. And I think I personally struggle of like what's appropriate of like, like, do I doubt myself in the relationship or who's in the wrong or things like that. So I would love to have this conversation with both of you today.
So I'll kick it off in terms of divorcing a friend if you ladies don't mind. And I think my situation is one that is pretty common, but yet very painful to talk about. And that's divorcing a friend that you've been friends with since childhood or adolescence. You've really gone through the highs and lows of life together for many, many years.
I'm shaking my head yes, because it totally resonates with me.
And in my particular circumstance, I just remember thinking that we'll be best friends forever, that we'll be by each other's sides on our deathbeds and so forth. And yet, just things took a turn. And it really became one where there was no turning back. And instead of having this big blow up or a confrontation, we just took our separate paths. We just stepped away.
I was just going to ask, was this like a process over time or was there a specific incident that kind of, led to this?
That's a really interesting point. I think it was just a buildup of events over time. It's funny because we really bonded in the beginning due to our very, I guess, bleak perspective towards life and people, our great cynicism. We were the girls in black who were ostracized by the rest of the class or what have you, never felt like we belonged.
Yeah, if you could give a little background, like you guys met in school, were you elementary? This
Yeah,
was like through extracurriculars, or like how did you guys meet?
sure.
Tell us.
So we met in college, and I remember seeing her across the lawn and just being gravitated in terms of the dyed black hair and the vintage dress and the Doc Martens and just having a really unique look.
My people
Yes, my
going through your
people.
head.
That's how we bonded in terms of school and college experience and just, again, just being gravitated towards each other. And
Was it like instantaneous, like, or you just kept seeing each other show up at the same things in the
it,
same
it was
circles?
pretty instantaneous, at least for me anyway. Shortly after that, we just pretty much became inseparable. And I really stress that this friendship went on for decades after that. So, as you all of us know once you leave school or college, the real world is not so secure and safe. And especially as two young women starting off in our careers, back then it was New York City, and getting the first apartment, having the first serious relationship, all of those adventures that one goes through during that time. And it really developed into not only a friendship but a family situation as well, because I was invited to family events in terms of
Mm-hmm.
birthdays and anniversaries. I became a member of the family. I became very friendly or close with her parents and cousins and aunts and uncles and so forth. And I was always invited in terms of those big family events, calling each other and seeing each other on a regular basis, just really being each other's cheerleaders, but also therapists and so forth. But as I mentioned, life took a turn in the fact that, as I stressed in the beginning, that cynicism and bleakness, she ended up, at least in my opinion, living a very charmed life
Mm-hmm.
in terms
Like privileged, or just like she just like elaborate more. Like, what does that mean for you?
charmed life in terms of amazing family, having a financial safety net, having a great support system, just things falling into place for her very easily in terms of job security. So, for instance, as we've talked about in the past, we've all been laid off, and it seems to be just a common scenario now. And
Yep.
the three of us have talked about this, how even the very young now are being laid off in a very systematic fashion, and how that can really warp your perspective in terms of the rest of your career trajectory. Well, she and I obviously went through our respective layoffs, but she got jobs very quickly and very easily,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I was the one who always struggled, who went through long periods of unemployment, who walked into very fucked up situations, had bad managers, and just a series of events. I know I sound like I had a series of bad luck, but and had a horrible life, which is not the case. But when you compare, it's hard for us not to compare to another
Mm-hmm.
person who's very close to you. And I
Did you feel like, sorry to interrupt, like she just couldn't relate? Was it like you were doing like you were living life side by side and like you were experiencing one version of life and she didn't identify with what you were, or she couldn't relate to what you experienced, or was she able to be supportive even though she wasn't going through that?
I'm sure if you were to ask her these questions, her situation or her perspective would be very different than mine. But I remember the first time I got laid off, she was laid off actually before me, and as I mentioned, got a job very quickly, whereas I had to
Mm-hmm.
struggle. And I remember being so touched by her going above and beyond to meet up, be a therapist, be a career coach, be a cheerleader,
Mm-hmm.
taking me out to nice meals when I couldn't afford, things of that nature. I was being very cost conscious, and just really being by my side. But then the second time it happened,
Mm-hmm.
that changed, because her perspective turned into one where it was kind of like finger pointing, in my opinion. Why can't you hold on to a job? Or like, why are you having such a hard time when it was so easy for me? I just went on
Like
LinkedIn.
a place of judgment.
Yes. And then there was a series of difficult events where just, I guess, her patience ran out.
What would you have wanted from her? What would have been like the showing support? What would that have looked like for you?
Perhaps I'm asking too much, but continuing that support system that I had in the beginning in terms of
Mm-hmm.
our respective hardships. And then that all changed again just the jobs just kept coming, and she had great opportunities. She met a partner, and it was just like love at first sight. Life was just seemingly so easy for her, that I think, as you said, Tova, she just couldn't relate anymore. And to my disappointment, that patience and that support system, it just ran out. It was finite. And
Do you think she changed, like, meaning because she had, like this charmed life, like she then like couldn't remember like what her life was before that, or like, the feelings that she had, like where she was more of like a loner or didn't fit in, and then you guys found each other, and then all of a sudden she found like a whole new life for herself and she kind of walked away
I think so.
from. Mhm.
I think so. And
Have you noticed during the process that she has already changed? Or is just that one instance, the second layoff, you've
yes,
noticed that?
yes, there were signs of change in terms of
Mhm.
her just the, I don't want to use the word bleak anymore, but her very realistic perspective about life and people, which again, people like to ignore and don't like to talk about. It changed.
Yeah, I
It changed
I
it.
could so relate. Yeah.
It changed into one of, well, life is so wonderful, and it's unicorns and rainbows, and I found someone, and I got the job, and I have a great family. And I felt like that implied, well, there's something wrong with you. And I
I
felt
was gonna say I could
very
relate.
betrayed.
I hear that. It's like, first of all, it's like, hey, we both came from the same humble beginnings, like there's nothing like you didn't have this all this time,
Mhm.
like, do you forget where you came from? And now all of a sudden you're acting like this is your life,
You know, that's
and you,
interesting because now that I'm peeling back the layers of the onions, I don't think her life was that bleak. Maybe it was that
Mhm.
youthful rebellion of, um, I have this wonderful life, but I've decided to go to the dark side. I think perhaps it was just a culmination of all of those realizations where, hey, life is actually great, and life, I have all of these opportunities and privileges that perhaps in the beginning I just didn't realize. And also, when you enter into your 30s and become a quote unquote real adult, it's kind of like, well, maybe you should grow up. And why are you still having a hard time? This is when things are supposed to settle and we become real adults.
I'm
I
just
think it.
curious.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. I'm just curious, even before, that turning point for you, was she still like sharing her struggles, or it's always the good news for her? Was she, because I still believe even if you have a lot of success and
Ooh,
all the
that's,
shining points in life, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
You still
it's like
have
fake life.
you still will have like the painful part to you to, to think about, to that you have to go through. Does she like bring any of that topic to you?
It's funny you say this, Cleo, and now I'm actually deconstructing this even more. She met a partner who was just happy go lucky. And I think in order to maintain that relationship, and FYI, they are married. So this is, good for them.
Yeah.
I think when people walk into a relationship and there are differences, in order to stay together, someone has to change to be more complementary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe her personality type is to take on those that are close to her, and
Hmm.
that's how she lives. So like Cleo said, like life is full of ups and downs. There's never everything is perfect.
Hmm.
And either you're going to be open about it, address it,
Hmm.
or ignore it.
Hmm. So I really do think what Cleo said and what you said, Tova, as well, she either willingly or unwillingly decided to just and be happy-go-lucky, as well. And it even came down to like the types of bands that she liked, the types of food that she likes,
Mm-hmm.
the type of media that she consumes. It all changed. And perhaps that's why. But I think also from my own selfish perspective, she kind of casted me aside. And
Hmm.
that this is not an uncommon situation where it's either like the best friend or the partner, and you're only one person.
Right.
Did you discuss it with her? Could you even talk to her about it, or you just felt at that
You know,
point like so hurt and betrayed that I can't, or if I matter, she'll come to me, or I don't know. What were those feelings you had?
I really didn't want it to end with some sort of explosive confrontation. I really didn't want to get emotional about it because I think at that point I was so hurt, and
Yeah.
it, it was again a culmination of little things that I noticed, and I just didn't want to go there. And coincidentally, I was going to leave, actually physically move to the other side of the country. And I think timing is everything. And I think that was the last hurrah where it was just kind of like, well, I'm leaving, I'm moving. That said, just to wrap up the story, I did proactively schedule some time with her as kind of like a last hurrah. I scheduled a lunch where I told her about moving as well as other things that were happening in my life. And speaking of feeling betrayed, when I let it all out in terms of all of the details at this lunch, I think she felt betrayed. Because,
Really?
yes, because she said things like, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have done something. Why am I the last to know?" And things of that nature. So we ended it very maturely and very amicably. She did text me once when I moved to LA, but then it just fizzled. And long story short, via social media, the big, in terms of that's how all of us find out the latest and
Hmm.
greatest in terms of not only current events but our friends and family via social media. A few months ago I found out that they got married, and I saw all of the pictures that they posted, and seeing all of those, her, as I mentioned, aunts, uncles, parents, old mutual friends, and clearly I didn't get an invite. So that tells you something.
That's yeah, that pretty much says her feelings. But I found it interesting that she turned it around that she felt betrayed. From my understanding of
Mm-hmm.
like your interpretation was you reached out to her and she had this judgment towards you and she kind of held you accountable for everything that happened and kind of, seemed like she just didn't want to hear or be a part of that. And then to afterwards say, but you didn't tell me.
Exactly. Again, I don't think any sort of confrontation would have fixed anything because the paths
Hmm.
had diverged by that point.
Yeah.
I think some friendship is it's meant to be kind of in and out.
Yes.
That's my take. They will
I,
grow with
I, I call
you.
it,
They will grow with you for a period of time and you grow out of it, just like how we fall in love and fall out of love. It's the same exact, like, I think, projection.
yeah, I call that like crossing paths. There's
Yes.
like, we're all going on our path and there's a certain point of intersection
Hmm.
where like you meet through and then then those intersections separate.
Hmm. And it
I
could
agree.
be a few months, it could be a few years, it could be decades.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
But
very interesting for me to hear because for a decade, that's a very long time. That means to me that friendship has to be very strong and already like foundational stuff wouldn't be shaken, at least to me
mhm.
from my
Hmm.
perspective. Unless, versus a person you met for only a few months ago or like a couple years ago, then how is that comparing to a decade? So I think
Mhm.
falling out of that long-term friendship, like I'm just curious on your end, if you could redo this relationship again, how would you do it differently? Or the answer could be like, I'm not doing anything differently.
Hmm.
Or, if you could repaint the picture, I could have done this better, but I expect that from her, you know.
I think perhaps I would not have romanticized this friendship as much. Again, perhaps I'm becoming like a jaded old lady, but when you're young, you tend to romanticize things. I think going back to what I was saying about when you're in your 20s and your 30s and going through that transition, particularly when you're college age, you tend to paint this idealistic picture of like best friend forever. The prince on the white horse is going to come, and I'm going to get this great job that's going to set me off on a great career trajectory, and what have you. And again, speaking of I will not be ignored, all of these uncontrollable factors come into play that really throws a wrench into all of those things. I think going back in hindsight, I would not have romanticized this friendship and been like, again, I will be on your by your side on your deathbed, and what have you. I also another factor is that I came to a certain realization and found out also through the grapevine that even though I viewed her as a best friend, she never really viewed me as the best friend.
Yeah, I was going to ask a very similar follow up question in terms of like, perspective. And I think a lot of how we interpret and see things is coming from like how we're grazed, our life experiences
Mhm.
until that point, the things that we're exposed to, the things that kind of shape our thinking because of what we've seen. And, like you said, there was a lot about her life that you found out over time wasn't as bleak as she made it to
Mhm.
be. And I think there's a lot of, like you said, you had this version and vision of what she presented herself, but then the reality of really who she is. And as life continued and different things came your way, she didn't respond that way because in reality, she never really was kind of similar.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that, Tova. Thank you for articulating that so well. But I think that's it. And perhaps, well, it's not perhaps, it definitely is also looking back, Cleo, it was jealousy, right? Why is life so easy for her?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And again,
And that goes back to what I said. Like her life has always been so easy,
mhm,
really. She was raised and that was what she had. Like she had the support system. She had financial support, emotional support, mental support. And, someone who doesn't like what they're doing to get those, it's a very different path that you
mhm,
take. And, what you need and the support you need are going to be different.
mhm,
Absolutely. And that's why that's why I asked the question previously, does she ever talk about her struggles throughout the process? Because I'm just curious from her, like we all go through struggles
What does she
regardless,
consider what's a struggle to her even?
right?
I think perhaps if she did share struggles, they were very superficial
Mm,
and perhaps not to the depth and harsh realities of mine at
yeah.
that
Hmm.
time. And perhaps that was the turning point in terms of, well, after a certain period of time, when you start to grow up, we can't identify with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, the realizations and understanding, set in.
I don't like to me, I
So,
don't believe the that like everyone has their life very easily because eventually life will catch up. All the things that
Hmm.
we have been ignoring ourselves, whether that's internally, physically, mentally, whatever that is that we have chosen to ignore in the past years, months, years, doesn't matter, right? I think life is gonna teach us eventually on these things
Hmm.
that it tells us, hey, you got to face your reality, you got to face the problems, the inner demons or inner self
Hmm.
that you have, that you don't like yourself or you're not happy with the situation, whatever the situation it might be. You can put it under the rug in the back of your mind, but eventually life will happen over and over and over again to remind you, hey, you need to get back to the ground, to the basics.
that resonates so much because I have a story that touches upon that exactly. And what I want to say to Jenny is who knows? You might hear from her again.
Yeah,
There
I
might
honestly
be
think that.
it's a future date. And like I agree with Cleo of like no one goes untouched in the world, and either you're gonna address it or not, but it's gonna come up at some point. It does, you know, bubble up. It really reminds me of like my friendship and a friend that I had. So I was divorced when I had very young kids. I got divorced when my kids were, 1, 3, and 5. And I really had no family and no support. My ex wasn't, we weren't co parents. He was, in and out of mental institutions. I
Wow.
was basically raising kids myself. And it's hard,
Yeah.
trying to just like feed them, food, clothing, and shelter alone. Just like I used to like go to the gym at like midnight because like that was the only
Mhm.
time I had,
Wow.
available. And my life was really, and I struggled a lot. And I lived on a really, really like neighborhood block. Like it was a great block of a lot of support. And as other women on my block, some of them also their relationships ended and got divorced, I was really like there for them to help support them. So I met this friend of mine through another friend. So a childhood friend of mine had gotten a divorce, and then she moved in to my neighborhood. So we knew each other. And again, she had older kids, so our lifestyles were different. So we didn't always like
Mhm.
interact, but like we would see each other as neighborhoods, help each other out, give each other rides if we were stuck, or someone you could call on. We knew each other. And she was friends with this other woman. Who was her neighbor. And this neighbor of hers, she ended up getting divorced. And so this third girl, this other woman, her kids were the same age as, my childhood friends. So over time, like we just started doing a lot more, and I got to meet her. And like, so we did a lot of things together because we were like three single moms with kids. My kids were a bit younger. So like their kids, their youngest was like my oldest kid's age. And things like that. So we would do like I would always cook and have food in the house, and they would come in and out. And we just like did like, trick or treating together with the kids or host dinners. And as I got to know this other mom, I know she was struggling. She had it really hard, and I had gone through it myself. So really being more of a support system to her after, I've gone through it and I understood what it felt like. And then just in terms of like the two of us, like we liked and enjoyed the same things. So when we did have free time, I had hired help and live in help, and she would have, co-parenting time. So we would have time to spend together. And we had so much fun. We enjoyed it. Like we just liked the same things. We would laugh. We would have all these crazy fun adventures, like silliness, like where we would end up. And I was like, felt so like understood. Like, she's a single mom with kids. She
Mhm.
gets what it's like. It's not like my other friends who are married. I'm still good friends, but it's like, we're going through the same struggles. I was able to support her. She had a really hard divorce, was really tough on her. So just being available to her. And we had this really fun friendship. And as like her divorce got like more complicated and like things changed, and again, to me, I didn't see the signs. I was just like, I have her back. I know how hard this is,
Right.
you know? And I would go out of my way all the time, and I would keep, going, driving extra for her, or doing these kind
Mhm.
of, and I didn't even notice that I was doing it until my sister pointed out. She's like, "What the hell are you doing? This girl is like taking total advantage of you." I was like, "What? What are you talking
Mhm.
about?" And I was like, "No, we have so much fun." She goes, "Okay, you have so much fun. Has she ever come to one of your birthdays?" I was like, "No." She's like, "So much fun together. Has she ever gone out of her way for you?" And I'm like, "No." My
Mm.
sister's like, "When was the last time she came to your house? You're always going." And I was like, "Never." And like, this was part of the time when I was like taking that, like, journey inward of like, and what I realized, and because of my sister pointing this out, and other friends are like, "Oh, I don't enjoy her company." And I was like, "Okay, it's not your type."
Mhm.
What I was so unaware of how much I was the one doing all the
Mhm.
work, and she would just come in and out. It's like, "Oh, I don't like what you like, so I'm not going to come." And it's like, no, real friendships are like we take turns, or, "Oh, I'd rather do this instead, so I'm not going to come to your birthday party." And it like, there's like this big light bulb that went in my head. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this person has never, ever like had my back Really. I mean, when things worked out for her, so it seemed like she had my back. So that's what I was thinking, that like she's there for me. But no, it was always self-serving in her best interest, and everything that was, what she wanted, for example, like I had guys that were my boyfriends, like they always paid for everything. She would
Mhm.
join us, they took care of her. The minute she met a guy, she disappeared from my life.
Wow.
Never included me, even if I was included, never was like, call for and she knew, like, I'm a single mom, I don't have money, like I'm not, you know and I always made sure to have her covered, making sure that she didn't have to cover anything. Never, not once did this for me, and I didn't even acknowledge it. I was so blinded
Mhm.
by it, and I was thinking like we were so much alike. And when I started to think about myself more and understand myself, I was like, actually no, we're not alike. I stopped calling her. Like, I was like, you know what? Let me try what's going to happen. I didn't reach out. She never reached out to me again. Not once.
Tova, question for you. Why do you think you gravitated so much to this woman and bent over backwards and you were blinded? Is it because you felt like you found, I don't want to use the term soulmate, but someone you can identify with, and perhaps you were looking for someone to fill that void or what have you?
So there's two things. There was a part of me that was escaping. So she was someone that I could run away from life. Like life was hard. Like I didn't want to address it. So this is a person saying, hey, let's go out. Let's have fun. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do that. The other part is I think there was a part of me of like, I went through it all alone. And if I had someone that was there for me, like if I'm in a position to help someone, I will do that. But it has
Mm-hmm.
to be reciprocal. So I was
Mm-hmm.
attracted because I knew it's like, yeah, she has it hard. There are moments in life when you're down. And you know what? There are people that helped me when I was
Yeah.
down, and I could do that. I'm there for them. But then there's a time where then they have your back in other situations, and like there's smaller things, right? Like I said, like if she was going out with a guy, we were all together, he paid for her, didn't pay for me, where every time I had a guy
Mm-hmm.
pay for her, I was like, you need to pay for her too. Like, and again, these are the small little things where like it was so one-sided, like, oh, I would like to, I enjoy this kind of restaurant, oh, I don't like that food, so I'm not going to come today.
Well, that sounds
It's
like
like, but
me towards a
we
guy.
made
When I'm dating a guy, I'm like, I
we
don't
made
like it, I'm gonna show up.
like we made plans to have dinner together. I like this place. I like it. I've,
Yeah.
I've gone to all the places that you like things like that. So, and again, this has nothing to do with someone who is having a hard struggle. I think it's a type of personality, that I was just overlooking in many ways. And again, like I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't valuing myself, my friendship, what I had to offer. And I let this person just completely take advantage because I didn't value myself at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't, and I allowed someone else to now take my value for their benefit and not give in return. And I continue to still, give over myself to this person.
I'm curious. So during this, so you were unaware until your sister pointed out, right?
Yeah, like I had another friend who came into town to visit. And again, I included her in everything. She came to all the things that I had
Right.
going on. I had a friend that came in from town. She had a hotel room. I'm like, come join us. Like I invited her to everything. She met my entire
Yeah.
friend circle, people that I knew my whole life. And we've always included her. And my friend's like, "Ugh, she's annoying," or like, she's a lot of work. And I was like, really? Like, no, like she's just having a really hard time. Like I defended her. And again, like I just wasn't
You didn't not aware. You were
look.
not aware at all of what's happening, right? Until someone,
I think there was a part of yeah, I think there were signs of it, but I just was ignoring it. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't accepting it. I wanted her so badly to be like and have someone like me because I felt so
yeah.
outcasted for so long. And it's like
Hmm.
I wanted to make her to like in my head, not just romanticize, but like
You really want to
she's
be friends
just
with
like
her.
me. Like, yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only one who has this. There are more people like me in the world that, felt this way or.
Is it
I've
is it
certainly,
safe to oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jenny.
I was going to say, It's interesting you say this because I've certainly been in situations where I have been proactive in wanting someone to be my friend or going above and beyond to impress someone or give them gifts or do them a big favor. And then I think subconsciously wanting it to be reciprocated and then being so upset and devastated when it wasn't. So I think it's gotten to the point for me and actually where I'm very mindful of
Mhm.
maintaining boundaries just so that I don't walk into situations like that again.
And again, that's coming back to like before I started going in my journey inward of really like, why am I not happy? Why am
Hmm.
I not? It's because I didn't listen to what my needs were and I put everyone
Yeah.
else above me. And, that was something that I was so blinded by that, like, no, like I would be tired and I would drive out of my way. And it's like, wait, I'm constantly going out of my way for this person. And once has she been there and stepped up for me? The only time she has stepped up was for her benefit. And it wasn't about me. And it made me say, like, how much of a friend am I? So when I said I'm not gonna call to see if she calls me, she never called.
Hmm.
She never texted. Nothing. When it was her birthday, I texted her happy birthday. So then on my birthday, I got a happy birthday. That was it. And then this year, I didn't text her happy birthday. So guess what? I did not get a happy birthday.
Wow. It's
Wow.
we call like plastic, very plastic friendship,
But
right?
and again, it was part of my journey, my eye opening to me, where I had to realize like, who am I investing my time with? Who are the people that I'm considering my friendships? I'm not happy or finding success. It's because, yeah, I'm allowing myself to be in situations where I'm not being accepted in the ways that I was accepting to them. I was in
Mm.
situations where I was giving more of myself and I wasn't getting in return. So, yeah, like I realized like that if I want more for me, like I have to put in boundaries and demand more for me. And, a couple of friendships, I mean, this one hurt me the most because this one, like, it wasn't like a childhood friend. It was someone that, came in later in my life. And I thought there was so much that we really, identified, like just understood each other and connected in so many ways. And just, how we grew up and, our relationships and like marrying people because of our family and realizing, after having children, this isn't the right relationship. Like there was so much you just
Right.
understood, like, and I really like you said, like I wanted that relationship so badly. I wanted to be understood and accepted so badly that I let the other parts of myself like I ignored. And I didn't stick up for myself. And I excused the bad behavior. And even when people pointed out until my sister was like, what the fuck? She was like, she sucks. And then all of a sudden, like, I heard it. Like I was able to see it so clearly. And this was that crashing moment where like everything in a relationship played out. And I saw all the flaws. I saw all the things that were wrong and all the things that I didn't acknowledge or ignored or I turned a blind eye was so apparent that I was like, let's see if she calls me. Let's see. Let me see if I'm wrong.
For the part that let's say you say ignored, was at the moment where you just like, that's not a big deal for me. I don't care about these. Or it's more like I care, but I prioritize the need of the friendship. That's why I ignored. Or like I want to distinguish between I
Yeah.
don't care
Yeah.
about this or it's I actively choose to ignore.
Yeah, so I think it came from such a low place. Like I was extremely overwhelmed. Like meaning I was the sole breadwinner. My family didn't give me any like I even called my mom and she's like I was like, "Can you just like call to see how I'm doing?" She's like, "I don't know what you want me to say." Like she couldn't even just pick up a phone and say hello. Like I wasn't asking for much. My siblings like they also had young families. They had their own things going on. I mean, now, I'm closer to my siblings. We discussed it, but at the time like we were all like stuck in our own selves and our own
Hmm.
lives what was going on and it was extremely overwhelming. I had no one. I had three babies that I had to like take care
Hmm.
of. I had to do everything. I had to work. I had to be emotionally, mentally, and like I didn't value myself, and I allowed everything, like from my ex-husband to my friendships to my family, like I was in like survival mode. So when they did things, I was just reactionary. I wasn't in control. I wasn't,
Mhm.
so it wasn't that, it's like she wants my attention, like, oh yes, someone wants to be with me. Like I wasn't able to even see beyond like, and the real like what that was, because I had so much. Like my schedule was like I'd wake up at 6:30 in the morning, get my two older kids out of bed, then I would get my younger. In between the two olders getting out and waking up my younger, I would prepare dinner. Then
Mhm.
I would pack myself up, wake up my younger, get ready, get him to school, then try to catch a train. Now, if there was a little traffic or I would miss a train, like I would be screwed. Like it was like get to work. I was a team lead. I managed a global team of 20 people. Like I didn't all day long. I would get calls from school, like my kids crying and issues, and I'd be stuck in the city. I would have a nanny at home, and then like after helping my team, like 4:35 p.m., I would just get to my emails. Then I wouldn't get home till like 8, 9 o'clock. And that's when I had to go through all the kids' homework. What did they do? What do they need? What's for tomorrow? And like 10 o'clock is like when I ate dinner. 11 o'clock I worked out. Like that was my schedule. Like I didn't have even a chance to think about things, to even consider what is it that I needed, because I was doing for everyone else all this time.
Do
How
you
has
think
that make you feel like so after you guys separate your ways? How did that make you feel? Did you feel unsettled? How did you get over that emotion?
Yeah, so I was actually, and it wasn't just this one. There was a couple of relationships that I kind of walked away, and I was actually like happy. Like I was like, I'm doing proud for myself, actually it's like, no, like I wasn't happy in my life. I felt so overwhelmed. I felt so dismissed in so many ways. And I am finally like, if I'm not paying attention to me, if I'm not valuing me, who else is going to? And
Mm-hmm.
all the things that I was like
Mm-hmm.
so upset with that I wasn't getting, like I
Mm-hmm.
realized like I had to take care of myself. And I also like the kind of role model I wanted to play for my children and
Mhm.
for them to see. And I had to do better. So for me, it was like, actually, it was like so inspirational and so freeing for myself to like, wait, I can control this. I'm the one who's blocking myself. I'm the one who's not allowing, these things happen for myself. And if I don't make changes, then I'm the one who's going to lose out, nobody else.
Did you also experience any level of sadness or emptiness because you lost this person in your life?
I felt sadness for my younger self, actually. I felt sadness and emptiness for the younger version of me who didn't know better, who couldn't have known better, who didn't have the tools and was in survival.
And I want to toss that question back at you, Jenny. I'm very curious. Do you miss your friend?
I do. And to be very honest, it wasn't until quite recently where I would not get emotional thinking about that friendship and what has transpired.
And the reason
Okay.
I'm not emotional, because my good friends that I still have in my life.
Mhm.
I have my friend that I met, right after college. We've been friends for 25 years. I met a friend that I met while in college. We don't even live in the same country, but we also make efforts to see
Mhm.
each other. She's still in my life. I have a group of, four friends that I met at childhood. They're still my friends. And I started placing more value on those relationships than the ones that were like empty,
Mhm.
and so I wasn't sad over that, because I was like, I'm so fortunate to have such good people in my life. And I felt sad for younger me who didn't even know how to understand that, or to.
And
And it also showed me, oh sorry.
I was going to say, you made a realization that a lot of people choose to ignore, really, because I know of
Hmm.
many people who are stuck in friendships, relationships, marriages, even where it's so one sided. and yet they choose to sweep things under the rug.
And again, like it also just shows me the quality of the friends that I do have, because they were there, support. And again, we all had different life
Yeah.
experiences, but they're still there for me. If they didn't even understand what I was going through, they were still there for me, and vice versa. And it was reciprocated. And those are relationships that I still keep. And it's also how I value my time and who I invest in. So I invest in those relationships a lot more than I was,
And to your
and they become stronger.
point, Tova, I think like when you brought up people who, who value you, who understood your story, your background, I think I have similar like situation, but
Hmm.
like I'm currently struggling with this relationship,
Mm-hmm.
this friendship. Obviously, I miss her and it creates emptiness in me because I really
Mm-hmm.
truly value the friendship. So kind of give you more
Yeah.
background on that is this friend very dearly to my heart. And we met in my first job out of college in investment bank. And she is 1 year younger than me. When she joined the company full time, I was her buddy. So it's like we started our relationship in that more professional way, and slowly we grow
Hmm.
more than just professional, more just coworker, and the connection that we had a couple years that we spent together on that job. And afterwards, we move on to different like roles, different companies, which that didn't actually separate us apart. That actually like
Hmm.
make us become better, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll share information about life, what's up, and things like that. So I think our relationship really becoming fruitful, very intentional and valued during the COVID time because I was struggling a lot in my personal, professional careers. She was there, saw through the entire journey. There were days that I felt really happy. There were days that I felt really bad about myself. She was there every step of the way to help me, guide me, counsel me, encourage me. Even if I'm not doing jack shit about something, she'll call me out. She's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Just pick up your shit and move." So she's the type of person
Hmm.
always there for me and knows me, knows my story, all my struggles, and all my proud moments and all that. What happened during COVID time until this point is she's having struggles in her love relationships. I really think, and I'm not afraid to say that, is that she's in a very toxic love relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not
Oh
a
boy.
1000% agree that she need to be in it, but she's having a lot hard time to get herself out of that, which to be quite frankly and make the story short is that like there is a 1 year me and her in conversation every single day for hours talking about her love relationship. The love relationship we're discussing is the same thing over again for a couple hours on a daily basis. So for entire years.
Your friendship is now just about her relationship and
More
a
so,
toxic relationship that you don't approve of.
yeah, more so, I truly value her friendship. I value her as a friend because she's really awesome. I've been there for her. She's been there for me. And I wanted to invest those times. Whenever she had a, argument, whatever, I'm there listening to the story, giving her advice. The personality difference in here is that I am more solution oriented. So when you come to me, you
Mm-hmm.
ask me a question, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a solution, how to fix your situation, or at least from my perspective. But for her, like I can't distinguish between when she needs a comfort or when she needs a solution. I'm naturally not a very comforting person.
Right.
I'm more about like, let's get the shit done. Let's move in the right way. Let's move it quickly. And rather than more empathetic. So I think just calling myself out. Like I think I'm less empathetic that way.
Don't say that, because I think also, like, when you care about someone, you don't want to see them suffer.
Yeah.
So you want to solution it because you want to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So you may not be this on the one end of the spectrum, but there is empathy. And I think
Right.
there's a lot. So credit yourself of, like, this, there is a value there.
That is a great call out because I don't think I valued it like until you called this out because like the fact that I spent the entire year every single day 3-4 hours a day listening to her same story. I don't think for me I'm not a patient person. Like
Right.
if
Yeah.
if you're just a regular
But
friend to
her pain
me,
is your pain,
yeah.
you know?
If you're just a regular friend to me, you talk about same thing every day for a year, then like I'll be like, go fix your problem and you come back, right? For her,
Yeah.
that patient was there. And I think to your point, Tova, thank you for calling out that's to me is empathy. Because there's a difference in terms of expectations and how I am, how she is. And I think that creates a little bit of friction. Because I also, on my end, to be honest, if you're hearing the same exact thing every day for an entire year, like
Right.
you get so Like, I don't know what to do at the end of the day. Like, I mean, I said what I
Yeah. So
could.
we have to own our own shit in
Hmm.
any relationship, And I had a very similar situation. I mean, I remember I mentioned I had a friend that I met
Yeah.
out of my first job, and we're friends for
Yes.
25 years. So I had a very similar friendship, and she had really toxic boyfriends. And so there are a couple of things that, and again, it wasn't, we're still friends. So like, I think there's a lot of value because like you said, like, don't dismiss the friendship. But
Hmm.
there's also, I think, boundaries and things that you could do that work for you. So how to protect yourself, but also be a good friend at the same time.
Yeah.
And what I had done was a couple of things. So when I was still like younger and I didn't really know how to manage it, I kind of took a step away, but I always called on a birthday. I always
Hmm.
called on a holiday. So I
Hmm.
made myself available in things that mattered,
Yeah.
or I shared news, like, things like that. So I always kept the friendship going, but I didn't give myself, because again, I didn't know how to manage.
Yeah.
As I became more self aware and as I did a lot more inner work, I said to her, I love you very much. I want to support you, but I can't support you in this time. So if you want me as a friend to listen, you need to then tell me that.
Yeah.
If you want my advice, then you need to tell me that. If you want my advice and you're going to do what you want, then I cannot be someone who gives you advice then either.
Yeah.
So then I made a very clear boundary what that was. And again, so I showed my support to her, but I also didn't put myself out in the way that I was now,
Yeah.
losing from myself. And it
Yeah.
was really important. It took me time to figure that out. Also understand you can't make someone do something they're not ready to do.
I know.
That's
That's
true.
that's what
And
I
I
realized. That's exactly what I realized. No matter how many times when they're ready, their mind is not ready to do certain things, they're not going to do it. So that was like a part of the journey. And then like slowly, and we had a similar conversation about that, Tova, to your point. Like we talked about it, where kind of was like, I don't want to listen to her love relationship as much. And then like she kind
Mhm.
of gets the idea that I cut that out more of the conversation.
Yep.
And then slowly, but like I think the damage during those conversations has already done, like staying the relationship a little bit.
Hmm.
Like I already have like certain, I guess, perception of her through that, and she has certain perception of me, based on what I said to her. I think it's just like a lot of frictions lately, especially from last year to this year, the way how we're doing things and the way how we communicate. And I always felt like there's expectations. I don't know how to phrase this perfectly,
Hmm.
but like I
Yeah, so
don't.
I totally understand because I had versions with this relationship. And again, so I think you have to also understand like relationships have ebbs and flows. You're going to have moments of
Yes.
closeness and there's just sometimes you need to separate.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a healthy separation. So it's not that you have this tainted feeling. I think it's just that's a signal of we need space from each other.
Yeah.
And that's where you play the role of wishing each other happy holidays, happy birthday.
Mm-hmm.
But, the French, don't stay on the phone for an hour.
Yeah.
Like you need that healthy break. Also, it gives her time to figure out and also for you. So don't walk away from the friendship and don't judge the friendship, but also like keep it at arm's length at the same time.
Do you think perhaps you romanticize this friendship, as you were saying, stained, but more like, wait a second, this isn't that idealistic friend that I had envisioned?
I don't know about romanticizing. Like for me, I don't overthink about like friendships. Kind of just give you an example. The dynamic in our relationship, I am more like not confrontational. I'm more listener. She likes to talk and she will be like confront. But for me, like if I feel like there's a subject that I'm like really feeling really strongly, I will step up and confront
Sure.
her about certain things that bothers me. I'm not going to bring up like a small thing because I don't think it's worth
Right.
to bring up or
Right.
discuss about like every single time like you did something that I don't like. I'm like, she's my friend. She has good intention overall. She's a great, I value her. Some of these things I'm just ignore. I'm not going to acknowledge. The
Mm-hmm.
difference to her is that she will bring up things that bothers her immediately rather than
Hmm.
like me. I'm like, okay, it depends on the relative scale. Like, is that bother me that much? Like, like if it's not, like, I'm not gonna like, because I'm not dating that person. We're not dating. We
Yeah.
are friends together. To her, it's like me not calling out those problems. It's me not investing in a relationship, which I think kind of
Hmm.
weird concept.
You're two different people. You're
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
to value things differently. And the fact that because you're so different, you still have the friendship, you have to, this is where I was going to say, what is your boundary? So, like you said, your personality is not to call things out. That's her personality. We accept our friends for what they
Hmm.
are. But When it's affecting you, like you
Yeah.
said now, because now you're seeing, that's when it's time for you to call out the bad behavior. That's when it's time for you to say, this doesn't work for me. I love you, but I cannot do this for you, or I cannot be that person in your life for this. I'm always here for you,
Yeah.
but I cannot be that. So, for example, with my friendship, like the last time I saw her, I mean, this guy was a piece of shit. I'm like, I told him off, and then I went to my friend and said, I love you, but until you fix this, I am never coming to see you again.
Mm-hmm.
Call me anytime you want. I will always have your back, but I cannot be in the presence of this.
Yeah.
She got rid of him and she's like, I fixed it. Like, and then we laughed. So like our friendship resumed in the same
Mm-hmm.
old way. And I think it's just the navigation of that for yourself of what are things that I'm okay with in a relationship and friendship
Hmm.
because I value it? And what are the things where it takes away from it? And that's where I put my foot down.
I went to New York in August and September. The main purpose is for me to see her, spend more time with her. However, a couple days before she calls, and she said, we better not fight. I don't know about this, but she
Mm-hmm.
always do that throughout the trips that whenever I visit New York. So what? If we fight in New York. So what happened? Why do you need to tell me ahead of my trip to kill my mood and all that stuff? One time, two
So,
time, three
so
time, fine. But multiple times, not okay. So I brought this up to her, and then she's like, okay, acknowledged. But like it's just these little things that's like I think it's more of a build up. And also another aspect that I suspect that triggers her because I know her before she got into this relationship. And I know how she is, and the current version of her and the version before is very different. She's angrier,
Mm-hmm.
she's
mhm.
bitter, she's unhappy. I think she always think I am more self-centered, but I do really think she's a lot more self-centered right now.
I get this from my kids. They're angry at their dad, so who do they punish? Me,
Right.
right? So this she knows it's a bad relation. There's a part of her that I
Mm-hmm.
believe knows what that is. Yet she's not in a position to move. And you know her. So again, it's her own shame for herself
Yeah.
when she's with you that she doesn't want to. So what does she do? She puts it on you. And again, that shows a sign of her struggle. But at the same time, it's like, how much of it do you need to help? And also, as you move on to life, you have to make that separation for yourself. So there is a part of it where, I think a lot of this is coming from her pain.
Hmm. Yeah.
And, and you have to say to yourself, and what's okay for you, or like,
Yeah.
you know what, she's in pain. She can't see past herself. I'm always going to be, and again, or you could say, there's just so much that I could do or be there for.
Yeah.
And again, that's for you to decide for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
or in different moments, say, I'm now in a place where I could give more, or right now I need to prioritize me before you, and I can't do this. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And again, the friendship is going to last, I think, at the end of the day. And it's like, as we have different things that come in and out of our lives, it's how we are going to respond and react to it. And I think for you specifically, because I think from my understanding, like you did get a lot out of this friendship. There's a
Yeah.
lot of
I
value there.
still until
And
this
just,
day value this friendship.
but there's the bullshit that is,
Yeah.
not allowing for all of that to come through.
Yeah.
So it's really, you have to like kind of step over the bullshit, walk away from the bullshit. And the reactions to the bullshit are going to be different in different moments. And that's for you to like think about and ask yourself.
I absolutely agree. And then like so we kind of fall out of like conversation, like texting or calling. Like we're not doing any of that. And on her birthday in October, I just sent her a birthday message and she responded. Like I just kind of cut off like that because I do think with her and with myself, we need a time apart. We need a time
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
apart. Just think about each other, just missing each other. I
Yeah.
think we needed that. The struggle that I'm having, like Jenny, like chime in as well with your like childhood friendship and Tova as well,
Mm-hmm.
is that I in this relationship I always constantly felt like I'm being mistaken. I have to explain myself. Whatever I do is wrong to her. I don't know if it's coming from me or it's coming the pain that's coming from her. That
Mm-hmm.
I cannot
Right.
distinguish.
Mhm.
And I do acknowledge that there's certain parts to my personality that I need to perfect and I need to do better in improving and acknowledging. However, I also suspect a lot of that is coming from her. Whatever she's going through with life, and Tova, to your point, like she's struggling, right? She's throwing out her pain on her friends, her families, and whoever that she's close to release that pain that she's experiencing.
So let me ask you this. Are there other friends of hers that you know? Because sometimes I talk to other friends of my friend. And that's where I was able to distinguish of what is this exactly? Like, is this me or is this just what's this period is happening?
Another thing to realize is that you can't control your friend and you can't control how she interprets your actions or your words. As long as you try to put your best forward, how she receives it is really outside of your control.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need time to think and feel it,
Yeah.
process it. You don't get answers right away. And it's kind of like test the waters and see what
Mm-hmm.
happens,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
put things out there, reach out to other people that know her in a group chat or, invite her to a group setting or just be very clear with her saying, I love you very much. And here's what I could do for you. Your gut will feel and like listen to your inner self and don't ignore what you're feeling and identify that. And when that feeling comes up, then ask yourself the questions of like, okay, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you said about listening to your gut and your inner feeling, your sixth sense, is just really at the core of all of this because,
Yeah.
particularly in my situation during COVID and during those hard times, I did think about reaching out to my friend, asking how her family is and what have you. But to be self critical, I think also for me, what impeded me was pride, but also
Mm-hmm.
fear, right? There's the pride of, well, I think you did me wrong, so why do I have to come to
Right.
you? And then, secondly, fear of being rejected or ignored. So that's always impeded me. But that said, when I saw that, again, going back to the wedding and the marriage and what have you, well, I mean, actions speak louder than words there.
The same thing. I tested the waters. I didn't call. She didn't call me. I said happy birthday. She said happy birthday. I didn't say happy birthday. She didn't say happy birthday. Like, that said everything to me.
I agree with Tova in terms of time. Get some clarity, get some separation. And if you're meant to be reunited, it will
Yeah.
happen. If you're meant to drift apart,
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing anything. And I do find like, yes, I'm experiencing like I'm missing her. I felt like a little empty inside of me. Absolutely. But I also feel like I don't feel as burdened.
Well, that also could be your own growth process that you're experiencing right now, And as you are having your own self awareness and
mm-hmm,
your own self growth, these are things that are going to feel differently for you. And as
Yeah.
time goes on, you're going to be able to identify. And I think that's also part of this experience for you.
mm-hmm. That said, ladies, any takeaways?
I appreciate hearing from both of you, like hearing your perspectives and your relationships. And like, even though we all had different stories, I think each of our stories, like I identified with, in my life. Like I even called it out. There were moments I had those kind of experiences. And I think, like Jenny said in the beginning, like, doesn't matter where we come from and what our lives, I think there's certain common human
Mm-hmm.
experiences we
Yeah.
all are going to have at some point at some time and really came through for me in this conversation. Both of you have to keep everyone updated what happens, if Jenny's friend reaches out or Cleo, like
Yes,
we'll
I
have to
will.
have like an update at some time in the future.
Definitely. We'll have to do another podcast. But on that
Yeah.
note, great conversation as always. Again, here's a platform where no one will be ignored. And until next time,
Bye
Bye.
guys.